Blue, some of the top targets getting linked to Miami for this 27 cycle. Important to keep the South Florida kids home, and you happen to have the best offensive tackle in the country right in your backyard in Mark Matthews, who is strongly being linked to the U. We'll see if Miami can get it over the finish line with the St. Thomas Aquinas prospect. What can you tell us about Mark Matthews?
Yeah, different type of guy. It's funny because this past Saturday they had a line event over at St. Thomas, and I got a chance to, even though he didn't compete, he was there kind of, cheering on his teammates, Jaden Dean and players like that. But I had a chance to watch him at Under Armour compete against seniors.
Yeah.
This is the new breed of offensive lines. Like someone said to me, look at Mark Matthews. He's got veins popping out of his legs and his arms. You don't see that in an offensive lineman. He's put together. He's 6'6". He's got flat stomach. He's strong. He's athletic. Like I said, I had an opportunity to watch him go up against some of the premier kids who are now on college campuses. This is, in this day and age now, as soon as you leave those all-star games, you go right to colleges, and had a chance to watch him, against, some of these kids that are, like I said, now are on college campus. He's a different type of guy. He came there and he kind of blew up last year and had an opportunity to be a part of a really good football team that won state again. Yeah, he's definitely the premier guy. He's one of the top, because of the fact that IMG keeps, putting kids into the state. You kind of say, well, those guys are the best of the best. So, right. So I would say Mark is top 5 right now, easily, in the state as a player. And that's including, guys like Osani Gales and guys like that who are the Forstall kid at IMG. And those guys are a premier 5-star type of talent. So he's right there with those guys.
Oh, I love that. So a wide receiver who I feel like is a must-get for Miami, and there are some crystal ball and expert predictions are for Nick Laneir, Blue 5-star player who's now at Miami Carroll City. Talk about him a little bit and how, if Miami can get this one over the finish line, how he could fit in a Shannon Dawson offense.
Yeah, different deal. Another Malachi Tony type guy, and remember, we weren't talking like this last year. So all those guys are, come on, let's not, heap praise, before you ever see him. But you and I were sitting there at the spring game, and Malachi's tearing it up, and everyone goes, oh, that's a future star. I said, future star? How are you going to sit that on the bench? And that's the same thing, at the Navy game this year in San Antonio, he, as a junior, got an opportunity to go up against a lot of really good seniors who are on college campuses now and tore it up, caught a touchdown pass. But he's been like this since his freshman year. And he's one of those guys. Now, I don't heap this praise on a lot of people, but I remember the last player that I looked at and said, oh, yeah, he's a 5-star running back, but he could be a 5-star cornerback was Duke Johnson. Well, he's of that same ilk. If he could play wide receiver as a 5-star type of wide receiver, he could do it in the secondary too. He's really, really that good. And I think he may be the premier kick returner in the country. You just, unless you want that guy to return that ball either all the way or, give his team field position, you kick it away from him because he's got those instincts. Very confident kid, and why not? He loves to mix it up. He likes when these defensive backs call him out in 7-on-7s and all these other events. And, with the Rivals camp coming up this weekend at St. Thomas Aquinas this coming weekend, I think you're going to see guys like that. And he's going to go up against a lot of these players because remember, in these Rivals events and these events like that and 7-on-7s, these guys read, they read the rankings. They know how much Nick Laneir is getting blown up and some of these players are getting blown up. So when they have a chance to go against them, they call them out. And that's when you see, that's why you saw last year. I saw Samari and Wingo, what he did, and some of the other talented players as well, on the line. So and that's the same thing with Mark Matthews. He's going to get called out by a lot of good defensive linemen this weekend, and we'll get a chance to see what he's all about. Yeah, it's not going to be in pads, but a couple of years ago we saw Buchanan, get called out a lot because he was getting a lot of, publicity, and he more than held his own. So, yeah, that's what these, rivals events, these Under Armour events are all about. Because most of the time now, the kids don't skirt them; they want to compete, and you'll see Nick Laneir. He'll never back off of anything. So it's great to see. And obviously we're going to talk about another player, Zayden Gamble, who I thought stole the show up at the Under Armour. Remember, he's an underclassman, and he played 90% of the game in the secondary, against some really, really good talent, and more than held his own. All the defensive coaches were coming over and talking to him, and during the game, everybody was, who the heck is that? Because he was the least known of the three St. Thomas kids that actually the underclassmen, because you also had Julius Jones, who's obviously a legacy to Notre Dame, we would think. But he was there, and along with Mark Matthews and then Zayden Gamble. And then all of a sudden, I thought Zayden stole the show out of everybody because he got a chance to show what he could do, played some good snaps, and more than held his own. So I think if Miami could kind of, and I think Miami's really, really more than in the hunt with all those kids, especially with Mark and Nick and certainly Zayden Gamble. Because this is what they want to do. They want to play in this type of spotlight. Remember, last month, Miami was in the national championship game. It's not like where, you go into the living room and say, well, Mrs. Gamble, in a couple of years, we plan to be in the big game. You were in it. So, so now you don't have to project. You just, let your results do your talking. And now when you're talking about elite kids, you want to go, oh, Miami will never get that guy. Why? They came as far as anybody but Indiana. So I think Miami's got an opportunity, especially with this class. And I'm not going to beat a dead horse, but this incoming 2027 class or 2026 class is crazy. And keep in mind too, Alex, that this 2027 commitment class already has Jalen Jones, the defensive back from MacArthur, Amari Stevens, the wide receiver from Chaminade, DeMarcus DeRoche, who is a kid that I don't take credit because I'm not a credit taker, but I've watched DeMarcus since he played basketball and was at Boyd Anderson and a long kid, and now he's at Cardinal Gibbons. And I think Miami is just, like they're so over the moon with this young man. And then also the Zaquan Linton from Palm Beach Central, who's an offensive lineman. So they got 4 really good kids already signed or already committed for this next class, on top of the targets that you mentioned. And things are going to fall into place really quickly for this 2027 class.